Okay, this is potentially the last of these remapping guide videos. It really depends on how much we want to get into duration and start of injection. So at the moment I'm just going to stop at the torque map and then consider what to do next. In many respects, the torque map is the easiest of these maps to look at because you can look at it by eye and you can take a fair guess at what you want to do with the values. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply make a copy of the torque map so that it's a little bit easier to explain what I'm talking about. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to drag that across to there and that. Right, so that's the same outline of the torque map there, except without engine rev per minute being mentioned. Now, I can see no real reason why you would want to play with the air pressure values. It doesn't really matter, so they can stay as they are, and obviously the revs per minute values, they can stay as they are. There isn't any real reason why you need to change them. So all you really need to consider is what to do with this data. Now, there is nothing stopping you from literally guessing what you want to do. You could just look at these. There's such simple numbers and there's so few of them that you could just guess what you'd like to do and then try the car and see what you think of the changes you've made. And as long as the changes you've made are not completely daft, you're going to be fine. But what I'm going to do is stick with using Excel, because obviously it allows me to make changes and I can make them as a sort of sweeping change across the whole thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a sweeping change of 10%. So I'm going to just take that first value and I'm going to multiply it by 1.1, which will give me my 10%. And I'm going to have a look at what that does. So I'll go down to there, I'll drag that across to there. Now that has come out as a maximum of what, 57.2? So in the middle we've got 57.2. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to deliberately try to hit 60. And the reason that I'm going to deliberately try to hit 60 is because I want to squeeze the most out of this as I can without touching the duration and start of injection. I'd have to go and double check, but I've got a sneaky feeling that from memory that the maximum duration values were for 60 milligrams. So I'm just going to have a little look at that again. I don't think I can probably go much further. So if I was to try 1.2 instead, if I try 12%, I OK that. Let's see what that gives me. 58.2. Let's try 13%. Let's see what that gives me. And again, I could try and do this in a much more scientific manner, but I really don't see the point. I mean, it's such simple numbers that we're obviously making very, very, very slight changes, but not enough to make a real difference. Let's try 4. I'll drag that one down to there, and I'll drag that one across to here. I'm getting pretty close to my 60, aren't I? I'm going to go one more just for the fun of it. Let's just see what... Oh, no, don't do that yet. Oops. 0.15. Let's see what that will let me do. Is that going to be a step too far? No, that'll do, won't it? 1.15. Has that gone in okay? Yep. So I'm going to up the whole thing then all over by 15% and then have a look. Now, am I likely to run into any real problems? Well, down at this end, at the low revs, it's unlikely that anything I do is going to have any effect at all that's harmful. I might notice a difference in terms of drivability, but I doubt I'll actually do myself any harm. What I'm going to do is have a look at this, and this is where the big problems can tend to occur, because you can use more torque than the drivetrain is happy about, but I'm not hugely different, am I? I mean, look, that was 44 there, and it's 50 now, but it's, you know, I'm not too worried about those. I think I'll leave those like those, and I don't go over 60. So if I use that as my new map and I put that in as my new map, I can try it out now. I can try it and I won't have to touch duration and start of injection. But if I want to go any further than this, I'm going to have to consider making changes to duration and start of injection. So I will have to, if I want to do that, well, if I want to show it, I'll have to make a new video, won't I? So if I want to go any further than that 60, which I'm close to now, I will have to make a new video to show people what I would consider a reasonable method of doing that. But at this point I'm going to stop there, and I'm just going to say, well, that would be okay, and then we can try that, can't we? We've now got a whole load of changes that with a bit of luck shouldn't do any real harm to the car and should make a difference to the way it drives, and then we should be able to sort of sit back and say, wow, you know, we've made a little bit of a map here, we've got a little bit of a retune, and we did it all on our own without any help from anybody else, apart from the guy who put the videos on the internet. Now, as I said at the beginning when I was doing these videos, I'm not an expert on this, and you are not being told do this and this is what you will get. I hate people who do that. I hate people who say this is what this is and this is what it's worth in terms of performance and the like. I suggest that you always make small changes to maps and then drive the car to see what you think you've done and how you feel about what you've done. That's the bare minimum way of approaching this. If you can, the best thing to do is to learn how to do a lot of this and then book yourself a day at a rolling road where the people there are prepared to put sensors on your car, let you use the rolling road, and allow you to make changes to the ECU file on the fly so that you can make a little change and then see what they say about the figures, and then make another little change and see what they say about the figures. And if you do that, you will be as close to being a professional as you're going to get, because that is pretty much what most professionals would be doing to make sure that their maps were giving the sort of performance that they consider to be adequate for that map. Anybody who has purchased maps will know that out in the wide world there is a huge variation in the quality of maps, and so if you buy maps from a professional tuner that's done a good job of producing tuned maps, then they can be wonderful, and if you buy some cheapo nonsense off of the internet, they can be diabolical. But then I guess that's why some people will look at these videos and think, well, I wouldn't mind having a go at doing this myself, because A, I might be able to do it at a reasonable cost, and B, at least then I know what I've done to the car. Right, so I'm going to call that a sort of a complete beginner's set of videos, as in finished, because I don't think you can consider changing duration and start of injection as a beginner's thing, no matter how you look at it. So although I may go on to beginners versions of duration and start of injection, they're not really going to be beginners versions, are they? Because they're going to assume that you know all of this and you've already played with all of the previous maps that I've talked about before going anywhere near those. Please, whatever you do, don't follow these videos and then make changes to duration and start of injection all in one go and then dump that whole file into your car. Because if you make a mistake somewhere in amongst that lot, you'll have made so many changes, there is a risk that you'll do some damage before you even realise what it is you've done. So up to this point you are relatively okay. After this point you may not be so okay. So get this far before you consider touching duration and start of injection. That way you will be in a much safer position. Right, I'm going to stop there.